Good morning, everyone. Shalom, shalom. So as you can see, the title, The Devil is in the Details. That's what we'll be talking about today. Before we get into that, let's go ahead, bow our heads, and pray. Dear Allah, thank you. We thank you for this new day. We thank you for the ability to grow in your word, to take our understanding from the milk of the lines and grow it into the meat of your heart. Thank you, Father, that you open up devotion in some of us that we are able to see through and see past, that we are able to see deeper. We are able to understand devotion because of you, Father, because of your Son and his example, and how he showed us how to navigate the details. We ask that you open our hearts, you open our minds, you open our ears so we may hear your word today, Father, and that we may follow more deeply and closely, just as your child, like your Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. All right, so we're going to be in 2 Chronicles chapter 30 today. Also, we're going to cover some of Matthew. Rain on me here. Uh-oh. It's gonna rain. Dun dun dun. Hang on 1 second. I got an idea. Please hold. Alright. We should be good for a little bit. Perfect. Excellent. So, chapter 30. And Kitzigyahu sent to Yisrael and Yehuda, and he also wrote letters to Ephraim and Manasseh to come to the house of Yahuwah at Yerushalayim to perform the Passover to Yahuwah, Elohim of Yisrael. But the sovereign and his leaders and all the assembly of Yerushalayim had taken counsel to perform the Passover in the 2nd month, for they were unable to perform it at its time, because not enough priests had set themselves apart, and the people had not gathered to Yerushalayim. And the matter was right in the eyes of the sovereign and in the eyes of the assembly. And they settled the matter to send a call to Yisrael from Beersheba to Dan to come to perform a Passover to Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael at Yerushalayim, since they had not done it for a long time, as it is written. And the runners went to all Yisrael and Yehuda with the letters from the sovereign and his leaders and spoke according to the command of the sovereign. Listen carefully, everybody. Children of Yisrael, turn back to Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, so that he returns the remnant of you, who escaped from the hand of the sovereigns of the Assyrians. And do not be like your fathers and like your brothers who trespassed against Yahuwah Elohim of the fathers, so that he gave them up to ruin, as you see. Now do not stiffen your neck like your fathers. Stretch forth the hand to Yahuwah, and come to his set-apart place, which he has set apart forever. And serve Yahuwah your Elohim, so that his burning wrath turns away from you. For if you turn your back to Yahuwah, your brothers and your children will be shown compassion. For if you turn back to Yahuwah, your brothers and your children shall be shown compassion by their captors. I want to pause there for a second. Does it say they won't have captors? No, it doesn't. Why? We don't live in a nice place, right? We have to live above that. That's why we also follow the set-apart way, because we don't live in a nice place. We live in a prison. Those that are in charge are your captors. Know this. We are of a sovereign kingdom. We are royalty in that kingdom when we follow the way. That kingdom is not here, though, right? We have to remember this. That way we can keep the faith. Let us continue. Which he has set apart, for if you turn back to Yahuwah, your brothers and your children shall be shown compassion by their captors, even to return to this land. For Yahuwah your Elohim shows favor and compassion, and does not turn his face from you, if you turn back to him. And the runners, so again, Elohim shows favor and compassion, and does not turn his face from you, if you turn back to him. And the runners passed from city to city throughout the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, as far as Zebulun, but they were laughing at them and mocking them. So some from Asher and Manasseh and Zebulun, however, humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Also the hand of Elohim was on Yehuda to give them one heart to do the command of the sovereign and the rulers at the word of Yahuwah. And many people of very great assembly gathered at Jerusalem to perform the festival of Matzah in the 2nd month. And they rose up and removed their altars that were in Jerusalem. And they removed all incense altars and threw them into the Wadi Kidron. So you see, they threw all the incense altars and everything. That's not what we do. That's not Yahuwah's way, right? They slaughtered the Passover on the 14th Yom and on the 2nd month. And the priests of Levi were ashamed and set themselves apart and brought the burnt offerings to the house of Yahuwah. And they stood in their place according to right ruling, according to the Torah of Moshe, the man of Elohim. The priests sprinkled the blood from the land. For many in the assembly had not set themselves apart. Therefore, the Luim were over the slaughter of the Passover for everyone who was not clean, to set them apart to Yahuwah. For many of the people, many from Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not been cleansed. Yet they ate the Passover, contrary to what was written. But Kitzkiyahu prayed for them, saying, Yahuwah, who is good, provide atonement for everyone. Let's start that again. Yahuwah, who is good, provide atonement for everyone who has prepared his heart to seek Elohim. Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers, though he is not cleansed according to the cleansing of the set-apart place. And Yahuwah listened and healed the people. So once again, these people were not clean to take part in the festival, as it is written, right? We see prior to that, they weren't celebrating as it is written, right? And then we see here where the compassion of a righteous man gives concession to these people, right? It allows them to be cleansed through something different, right? It allows them to be cleansed. Yahuwah, who is good, provide atonement for everyone who has prepared his heart to seek Elohim. You see, and then Yahuwah granted this. Made it happen. Made it happen in the realest way. He did. Because the truth of the matter is that's belief, isn't it? Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody's going to be like, oh, is this guy fully in it now? All we have to do is believe? Yeah. But you have to actually believe, right? We won't get all of the details right due to how things change, how they're and I don't mean culture changing, I mean how they're intentionally hidden and destroyed from us, right? You want to worship on the Shabbat. Well, is that Saturday? Is that Friday night? Right? We know it's not Sunday. Is it only on the moons? Is there a moon calendar we have to work out for the Sabbath? Right? We do have a commandment to honor the Sabbath. And I believe in it. And I do it. I do Sunday. Or excuse me, I do Saturday. From sun up to sun up. That's a day. Right? That's what I do. That's what the Spirit of Truth says is me, this system, this vessel, right? This clay pot. Ruach HaKodesh says this is in alignment with you giving complete devotion to the Father. Hello? Do you see now? You see, every jot and tittle in the Word is true. Yeah. But there's deep depths, right? And so sometimes a life situation can take away a ritual. A life situation can take away certain ways that we are to eat. You know, maybe you don't have that food available to you, right? For instance, we were plant eaters. Look at our teeth. That's a fruitarian mouth. It is. And we still should eat plants. But after the days of Noah, right, there's a flood. Caused a lot of damage. That's when Yahuwah told everyone you could eat meat. Right? He did give dietary restrictions. And people in the Torah, I see fighting about this just as much as I saw Pharisees fighting about this. Right? Instead of trying to intercede for these people and see if they can have a faith that can transcend even bigger than these things, right? When Yahusha says it's not what goes in the man's mouth that defiles him, but what comes out of it, right? Does that mean that pork is clean? No. Pork carries parasites. Guess what? So does everything else that we're not supposed to eat. Shrimp, shellfish, etc. They're literally the bottom feeders, the cleanup crew, right? Rodents, things like this. These are the things we're not supposed to eat, or the things that eat them. Because the parasites come in the body, right? They take over thoughts and feelings. Yes, they do, in order for your host to then provide them what they want. This happens. This is science. Oh, then how did Yahuwah know it all this time ago? Because he knows everything. And he gave it to us. And so therefore, like if you follow, right, the dietary restrictions, you're not going to have as much oppression in this system, are you? So therefore, to step into authority is going to be easier. Because some of those parasites can completely impress your mind where you have no chance of getting out. Right? So that's why it's important. But if you're in a situation, right, and you're faced with you're faced with a situation where the details have to be altered. For instance, when everybody was in Babylonian captivity, the situations were altered, right? Information was held back. They weren't able to worship in the same way, right? Moses went to his people when they were in Egypt, right? And when they were in Egypt, Moses went there and he said to the Pharaoh, set my people free, right? But he was specifically asking if they could go to the wilderness to worship. Does that mean Yahuwah had left them when they were in their captivity? Does that mean they broke their covenant while they were in their captivity? Well, that is part of the reason they became captive, right? And they have to atone and work through that. You see, it's complex, I know. But it's not all in the details. Because the devil uses the details, right? Hashatan. Hashatan uses the details to make us attack each other. Hashatan uses the details to make us fight with each other. Hashatan uses the details to make us not realize that somebody else is just as devoted as we are. Now, does this mean everybody is? No. Does this mean most people that say they're believers are? No, there's a very small remnant. But if you don't see what's being said here, you're not going to be able to be part of that remnant. Why? Because the devil, Hashatan, is in the details, right? But we have a clarifier. We have a rectifier. We have a redeemer, don't we? Yahusha. Yahusha's life was the clarification of the details. Not the eradication of the details. But as those details change, we just talked about how some of those details changed, didn't we? And Yahuwah favored it. They weren't clean. He provided the atonement to those who sought him with the whole heart. Why? Because that's what overrides the details. When you move and complete an absolute devotion with every action of your life for the Most High, it doesn't matter if you're an infant in the details. So many people are running away from the details or running to the details and then getting confused and getting shame and guilt. I'm not doing this right. I don't understand what to do, and I'm guilty about that. No. If you're intentionally rejecting Yahuwah's truth, right? Then your heart's not in it. That's the problem. If you hear truth and you're like, then even your prayer is an abomination, right? But if you are genuinely trying to follow this, you're genuinely trying to follow his way in the deepest way, there is no shame and guilt about details. Well, I don't know if I'm practicing Passover right. I don't know if I'm doing it on the right day. I don't know if I have all of the... Do you have it here? That will make up for what we lack in the details or not capable to do, right? A lot of these details were shown to show earlier people who had less faith. Say what? That's right. We have to have faith today, and we don't see it. And so this requires quite a bit. And like I said, when we get caught in the details, we fight a lot. Let's turn to Matthew 22. Let's see. We're going to do Matthew 22, 29. So Yahushua is being grilled right now by the Pharisees on details, right? And so what he says, and Yahushua answering said to them, "You go astray, not knowing the writings, nor the power of Elohim." See, whenever somebody wants to catch me up on details, that's why I have it offered. We don't need to argue back and forth via social media thread. No. Let's have a live in front of the assembly. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the details, if you wish, right? But you see, he speaks with authority. You go astray, not knowing the writings, nor the power of Elohim. He's saying this to all of the authority in this faith, this religion. Those that have position, and he has none. Does that change him? No. Why? Because of exactly what he tells us all. So let's continue. For in the resurrection they do not marry, nor are they given in marriage, but are as messengers of Elohim in heaven. And concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by Elohim, saying, I am the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Jacob? Elohim is not Elohim of the dead, but of the living. And when the throngs heard, they were astonished at his teaching. But the Pharisee, having heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, were gathered together And one of them, so the Sadducees are like our preachers. The Pharisees are like the church rulers, right? So he silenced all the preachers. They could not debate with him. So then the higher ups are like, well, we've got to see if we could trip him up now because we want to stay in the details, not follow truth that's right in front of them, right? And when the throngs heard, they were astonished. The Parashim heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, were gathered together, and one of them, learned in the Torah, did question, trying him, saying, Teacher, which is the great command in the Torah? And Yahushua said to him, You shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. This is the first and great command. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the prophets. You see, the Torah and the prophets does not go away. What is written does not go away because what is written was oftenly misunderstood. What was written was so we as a people can evolve. That's why this is for all generations, right? Because you can't fix the people in one generation. Do you know that? If so, it would have been done, right? So you can't fix the people in the generations because you have to let the game play out. And that's what Yahuwah has been doing. Letting those that truly seek him with everything, regardless the details. And then because of that, their heart gets so overwhelmed. They now know his way of life is right. The way of life here is wrong. The way they think and feel is incorrect. Therefore, they need to be conformed and refined by him. And not get lost in details. This is the challenge, right? That's the stumbling block. I've been talking about it for the past couple days. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. What's the bigger picture, right? So those that were at the Passover feast that were unclean, right? Could have been like, well, you're not clean, you can't participate. They had very, very small remnant of people at the time. And what was prayed for was intercession. That regardless whether or not they had the details correct, that their heart shall overcome. And Yahuwah granted it. And we see this again reflected from Yahushua. And we see this in his life. The Pharisees and everybody were trying him the entire time on details. They were able to trip everybody up and convince the masses of the time to crucify him on details, instead of listening to the absolute truth that he was saying. He wasn't saying to give up the Torah and the prophets, which would be the writings, right? He was telling them to give up their way of life. Because only when you give up your way of life, the human way of understanding, that flesh way, right? When you still have a carnal mind, you can't get around the details. Paul talks about this when he talks about carnal Christians, and he talks about those of the Spirit. Those on milk, those on meat, is Paul's words. Is that not the same? Is that not what we're looking at here? The past 3 days, is that not what we've been developing? Right? Every word's important. The more you follow this, the easier it is to be completely devoted. It does not give you salvation. It doesn't keep you in covenant. What keeps you in covenant? The fact that you've broken your heart, you've loosened up your neck, and you want to have faith in the Most High, absolute truth, even when it doesn't exist down here. Even when following that absolute truth sets you apart from everybody else and causes detrimental and uncomfortable situations here. That is dedication. That is loving Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. And then loving your neighbors. Because then we're down here for duty. not for pleasure. We're down here to do His will, not to try and make our kingdom. Does this make sense? Not to try and be altruistic and think we're doing good, and actually we end up hurting things because of our lack of understanding. We get caught in the details, we'll still think we're doing good. We can justify it, right? That doesn't mean it's always good. Does that make sense? I'm going to end it there with a prayer. Dear Abba, Yahuwah, I ask that you intercede right now and you provide atonement, Abba. Yahuwah, you provide atonement for all those lost in the details and all those with a heart of heart. Either way, those two will not see you. They will not continue on your narrow path. Father, I ask that you intercede and you give them atonement. You give them that heart. You take their heart of stone. You shatter that stone and you give them a heart of flesh like your word says in Ezekiel. You take their stiff necks and you loosen them, Father. You take their dry bones and you make them rise. I ask for your intercession, Father. So many are lost. So many are gone. I know that only a remnant makes it, Father. And I know you know who they are. I ask that you intercede, you give atonement, and you make their path a little easier today. A little easier this week. So they may know you deeper, Father. It is not an easy place where we are at, and you know that. Please, Father, even if they do not have details right, please forgive them, for they know not what they do. They don't have the deeper understanding. Please forgive them, for they know not what they do, Father. I ask this in your Son's most precious name, Yahushua HaMashiach. Selah. All right, everybody. I hope this message was a blessing to you. I wish you all the best. I love you all. Hallelujah. Praise